Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Yes, back. I've made a video on this game before. Shameless plug, I know. The Darkest Dungeon. Where today we're going to be taking a look at another one of Red Hook's mentally unhinged, morally questionable, and downright diabolical characters they have the nerve to call heroes. With that being said, however, this time around we might actually be looking at one of, if not the most non-fucked up of them all. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the Crusader.
A decisive pummeling.
A Crusader, in literal terms anyway, generally refers to any bloke that fought in the Great Crusades. Duh. It was directed by the Latin Church with the goal of claiming back the Holy Lands, aka Jerusalem, that lasted anywhere from 1095 to 1291. Now, as much as I would love to go into all of the social, political, and economical aspects of such an important historical event in fine detail, I'm just not gonna do that. A more modern/fantasy depictions of a Crusader, however, draws many similarities to the Paladin, being a holy bulwark of light and a righteous warrior. Usually, these characters are shown to don heavy armor and have a strong focus on the power of faith, and by association, God. They are also often shown to fight in order to protect and possess potent holy abilities. So with that in mind, let's take a look at Darkest Dungeon's very own rendition of the pure-plated Paladin.
Like any good character, the Crusader literally wouldn't be the man he is without some good old-fashioned backstory, or lore, and just like his combat kit, which we will get to in a bit, it's pretty damn simple. In the comic strip, it starts off with what we can see is presumably the Crusader himself, or rather who he once was, a husband and a father. As he waves goodbye to his wife and son, joining or being enlisted for the Great Crusade. Here we can see that in the army he is trained to follow orders and eventually to kill. The more he fought, the more men he killed, in the name of God or not, the more he seemed to revel in the zealous bloodshed. Soon enough, he is shown to be a notable warrior in the Holy Army, leading a battalion of soldiers behind his banner. Afterwards, he arrives back to a place he once called home, with his wife patiently awaiting his return, and his son, now a young boy, looking admirably at his father. In spite of this warm embrace, he remains stern, and as cold as the steel that plated him, he turns his back, choosing to continue on this path of war, leaving behind everything he once held so near and dear. Thanks to Darkest Dungeon 2 and his hero shrines, we are given some more in-depth and bonus details about each character's Darkest Dungeon 1 backstory. For the Crusader, we are told that he and his family were initially struggling to make it through the harsh winter, not being able to harvest enough grain. With the looming threat of starvation, joining the Holy Army as they arrived at his plot seemed like the only solution. In his journey throughout the war, one notable opponent is highlighted as a pretty big deal. And as he defeats him, he chooses to let the man live in shame of defeat rather than ending his life. So, now we know who the Crusader is, let's talk about what he actually does in-game.
Looking at his base stats, we can see that the Crusader here is one hell of a unit, boasting a truly massive health pool, second only to, well, the Leper. This impressive amount of hit points combined with his decent resist makes him quite difficult for the enemies to get rid of him. Though this incredible bulk does come at a cost of being literally the slowest character in the entire game. Moving on to his combat skills, we're gonna divide them into 3 categories, those being damaging moves, support moves, and utility moves. Because, well, why not? The Crusader, on top of being very bulky, also packs an impressive punch. 10 to 19 damage is more than capable of downing even tanky foes in a few hits. With the exception of Zealous Accusation, which suffers a significant damage penalty for being a cleave move, both Smite and Holy Lance allow Crusader to swing with full force. Not only that, but they also get a huge damage bonus of 35% against unholy enemies, which for some reason is also absent for Zealous, practically making it his worst damaging option, but I suppose the cleave can be nice sometimes. Next are his supporting moves, which he has two of. Inspiring Cry is absolutely one of, if not Sator's best move, healing not only a significant amount of stress, a small amount of health, and buffing Torch substantially. Battle Heal in comparison might look a bit bad, which, I mean, is not wrong either, but it does output about 3 times as much healing, so not too shabby. Finally, we have the utility moves. Stunning Blow allows Sator to disrupt the enemy team with a very respectable 140 base stun chance, on top of hitting pretty damn hard despite having the damage penalty on it. Bulwark of Faith gives Crusader a massive 30% prod buff as well as buffing Torch by an equally monstrous 24, while marking himself, drawing enemy fire onto him and away from his allies while reigniting the Torch. Onto Crusader's camp skills, and here is where we get the idea that the Crusader is this inspiring symbol of light, as literally all of his camp skills heal stress. Whether that stress heals for himself, one of his party members, or all of his party members, Zealous Vigil even has the benefit of preventing nighttime ambushes, which are, to put it bluntly, not a good time. This also makes him one of only 5 heroes that can actually prevent a nighttime ambush. After reviewing his skills, we can see that the Crusader is something of a jack of all trades, being able to do a little bit of everything and doing them pretty damn well. But base stats and skills can only take us so far. Now it's time to give our knight in shining armor some shiny trinkets. Starting off with his pool of common trinkets with the Defender's Seal, giving the Crusader plus 5% protection in exchange for minus 3% crit. Now at first it might seem insignificant, but when you try it on, it's actually so much worse. 5 prot is just way too low to get any use out of it, and taking away crit chance in return is just insane. Scoring a crit not only means big damage, but also comes with stress healing, hero-specific crit buffs, stronger secondary skill effects, and so on. So pretty bad to say the least. The Knight's Crest, however, is a decent option. 10% more HP on the second tankiest character in the game is nothing to scoff at, and arguably worse than the Life Crystal since Sator doesn't really care about speed anyway, but it's pretty good. And last for the commons trinkets is the Swordsman's Crest, giving a nice damage boost while nerfing Sator's healing. This is good for getting some extra punch out of Crusader, and as long as you're not using Battle Heal, it should be fine. Next is the Paralyzer's Crest, and for Sator is pretty damn good, with an additional 20% stun chance for Stunning Blow, and it's not like he'll be dodging anything anytime soon, so the -2 dodge is pretty negligible for him. Commander's Orders is great for a dedicated support Sator, and although Answer the Scroll is strictly a better choice for him, this is more than a sufficient option in the meantime. And finally, we come to what is probably the worst very rare trinket in the entire game. Holy Orders is just abysmal. Minus 20% resist on both DOTs means that he's just not gonna be as tanky. Focusing on Virtue Chance and Death Blow resist as his major upsides is a horrible idea. You're basically playing with Holy Fire if you try to make use of those benefits. And the best thing about this excuse of a VR trinket is minus 20% stress, which you can just get from the Book of Sanity, a neutral trinket. His Crimson Court set is luckily not so bad, and it's actually pretty great. You're basically going full support mode with this, which isn't bad at all. Maybe some extra stun chance would be nice, but overall an extremely solid set. His Fun Set trinket though does give him that extra stun chance, and besides the wacky 5% chance to random target, this is a neat way for the Crusader to synergize with Blight teams. Could go well with some extra accuracy, but for what it's worth, not bad at all. In this section, I'm gonna start off with what I believe to be Crusader's optimal skill set to run, basically every time you take him. Inspiring Cry again, I believe to be Sator's most valuable move. Able to get someone off of Death's Door, Stress Heal, and buff Torch. Holy Lance is also amazing for just nuking the backline enemies with bruiser damage. Plus, it does give Crusader a high tempo move in case he's ever shuffled out of position. In terms of trinkets, Ancestor's Singing Ring gives us both incredible defense and offense in one trinket, and Cleansing Crystal is great for resisting those pesky DOTs. In this alternate setup, we're going to be making use of Crusader's ability to slay, particularly against unholy enemies to be more precise, equipping all of his damaging moves and integrating quirks such as Unholy Hater and Slayer. We can also run the Unholy Slayer's ring to pump even more damage into him and the Focus ring to make sure he doesn't miss any of those hits. This build makes him an absolute monster in the ruins, is actually pretty fun to run. Lastly, we have Support Crusader, focusing on healing both health and stress, plus being pretty damn tanky. Although Mark is arguably just a worse version of Guard, the protection bonus does help it to be, though, not too bad. And for Trinkets is the CC set. There is just no better two Trinkets that play into Sager's support side. It's not even close. Hey yo, welcome to the end, and a huge thank you to all of your patience. Admittedly, this vid could have come out way sooner than, well, 2 months? Oh! TLDR, life happened, you know?
Impossible.
And throughout working on this particular video, I thought about what I really wanted to do with YouTube moving forward. And no, I'm not quitting. Yeah, sorry, y'all just have to bear with my existence on this platform, at least for the time being. Just been doing a lot of thinking lately, that's all. Anywho, thanks so much for watching. A like and sub would be appreciated, and have a wonderful rest of your day.